thank you all for being here. It's a wonderful thing for me to be back in this room in this way. And I was invited to give a Dharma talk. But I think that title doesn't really describe what I hope this event is about. Because it's more than just a talk. Zen practice has a lot to do with participation. There's no bystanders in Zen practice. We're all here to participate. And for me to participate in giving the talk, there's much more for me going on than the words I speak. And for you as participants, I hope that you will participate in more of what's happening here in this room than the meaning of the words I speak. I hope the words make sense. I hope they're valuable for you. But the words and their meaning is only a small part of what this is about here. And a Dharma talk because of the word Dharma is part of it. The Dharma is found not in words or books. And in fact, maybe it's kind of provocative to say that the Dharma is not found at Green Gulch. The only place you'll find the Dharma is in yourself. And the Dharma is something that is being manifested, it's being expressed, that's arising, that's being born, that's unfolding in us. Where the words, the ideas, the meanings that could be spoken are one aspect of that manifestation, hopefully. But it's kind of only a small part of it. There's much more going on here. And so you've come, and whether you hear, whether you intended to or not, you are now participating in a bigger event than my words. And I'm so conscious of this because of sitting in this room, in this zendo, that I've sat in, meditated in a lot. And there's something about stepping into a zendo, especially a zendo with so much space, that I suspect a high percentage of you stepped in through the door and felt, now you're in a different space. And something in your system shifted a little bit. Maybe you slowed down. Maybe you found yourself less inclined to speak. Maybe some of you found yourself a little bit respectful for this space. Something kind of, and one of the key things I think that a space like this does, at least for me, it heightens awareness, heightens attention. Like, oh, now I'm here. Now there's something here to participate in. And you don't just stumble in here or run for the closest seat. Pick up the chair and bring it right up to here because you want to be real close. You come in here, you kind of respect the place and how it's set up and the form. Something changes, something about the place calls on something inside of us. So you're participating in something. And that participation is a special place, special thing. And what I'd like to highlight is that it's not just about you, and it's not just about the place, what's outside of you. The talk is not about me, even though I will talk about myself, I think. And it's not just about you and what you think about it and your opinions and how it is for you. the Dharma, or the specialness of the Zen practice here, is what happens in the participation, what happens in the interface, what happens in these things come together, and what arises. So I'd like to give you some examples of what I'm trying to say. Something that I'm very fond of is that when you have a sensation, any sensation at all, but a physical sensation, the place where the sensation occurs is the same place that's sensing it. Your knowing of the sensation and recognizing what it is, that's a mental act. That might not be in the same place. But if I push against the palm of my hand, the place where that pressure occurs is the same place where the hand is sensing it. If the finger is the outer world, pushing against the hand, the participation is in that place where there's not really a duality, not really a separation, where the sensing and sensation occur together. I use that example now to bring another example, especially from my vantage point and those of you in the back of the hall there. But you know, there's a lot of space in this room. It's kind of special, all the room and the space. And you can probably let your eyes roam around and get a sense of the high ceiling and all the space that's here. You know, especially the space between our heads and the ceiling. It's mostly empty space. And you can get a sense of that. I'm using that word, get a sense of it. But what sensations are you taking in? What is there? How is that being sensed? How do you know it? How do you feel the space here? In a way that's separate from the recognition and the knowing of it. The awareness of the space, the knowingness, the sensing of the space. Where does that occur? Is it in the space, in the room? Is it only in you? Is it somehow the meeting of the two? Is there some way in which all the space in the room that's here, in an odd kind of way, is not distinct from your sensing of the space? It's not like they're two different things. Just like sensing the pressure of my palm of my hand and the sensing of it are not quite two different things. So in a way, you're participating with your awareness in the existence of the space in this room. If there was no one in the room, would there be space? It's kind of like, you know, if the tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it. Is there a sound? So here, the very sense of whatever the stillness of this room here, the sense of, maybe for some of us, the gravitas, the reverence, the sacredness, the how it calls on us to be aware. We're participating, we're being participated with the place we're in. When I was first introduced to Zen, it was by reading Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It'll be 50 years ago in about 4 months. And something happened in reading that book. Was it in the book? Was it in me? What was that special thing that happened as I read that book? What resonated? At the time, I felt that I was recognizing through the book, through the words of Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, I was recognizing something that I already knew, but didn't know that I knew. Somehow the words on the page came alive. Oh, yes, I know that, but something was born, something appeared, something came together. Something arose in that space that resonated very deeply in a very meaningful way for me. And was it the words, the meaning of the words? Maybe. But what I think back at those days 50 years ago, it was something different than words as well. It was something in my chest, something in my torso, something in my body, my heart, something that knew, something that participated, something was resonated. Something that was, I couldn't say was me. I couldn't say it wasn't me. I couldn't say it was the book, it's there. But it was not in the book. What is it that we participate in that is not about you and not about me as we do this talk? If it's all about me, we're in trouble. If it's all about you, I think I'll do you a disservice. If you're listening from the point of view, what's this good about for me? What do I get from it? And this is not what I agree with. And just wait until I get Gil later. I'll give him a piece of my mind. That might be nice in some ways, but if it's all about you, that's not where the participation happens. And if you're listening to me as if it's all about me, this is an amazing thing to sit up here. I thought it was a little bit strange when I first sat down. And I thought, I better not say that. Out of respect for this respect for my love and care for Zen practice and Zen all that. So I won't say it. And so, but if you give me the authority, it's all about what I have to say, then you lose something too. What is that middle way? What is the meeting place? What's the third way where participation arises? That's not about you necessarily participating, but you have to participate in order to make it happen. So, there's more happening here than the words. And I say all that as a lengthy introduction to hope or to suggest that you let your attention be broad, let your attention be global, let your attention take in this experience of being here for these talks and for these words. You might even want to consider that the Dharma talk is a guided meditation, where what's being said is pointing to, or maybe even evoking for you something, some recognition, some knowing, something in your body, in your torso, in your mind, in your heart. But we have to make room for that to happen. Maybe I'll pause sometimes, so something else can happen besides just contending with the words that I speak. Maybe in the pause is where the Dharma can arise in you, if you're paying attention, if you're aware, if you're present. I keep wanting to look over there because that's where I sat my first sesshin, on that platform over there. I think the second one too. I think I was 2 down. The second time, the first time I was 1 up from the wall. kind of like still 50 years ago. No, it wasn't that many. It was probably 46 years ago for that. So I was introduced to Zen almost 50 years ago. And I kind of immediately thought, this is important. This is what I want to be doing. But even so, it took a couple of years before I really started doing Zazen, sitting Zazen every day. And when I started, I was in college, and I kind of did it. Had been a guest student at Zen Center here. So I kind of followed the same schedule, more or less, where I sat twice a day, every day except Sunday. That was a schedule at the San Francisco Zen Center back then. And I started because I was suffering. But then something very unusual happened for me. The kind of suffering I was trying to address kind of dissolved, kind of wasn't there after a while. I attribute it to just the regular sitting I was doing. I didn't understand what had happened. But especially when I sat, it wasn't there. And I'm a kind of rational person. And so the reason to meditate, for Zazen, had gone away. The reason was I wanted to stop suffering. And there I wasn't suffering. And so, and I kept doing it. I kept sitting Zazen. And like, why am I still doing it when I have no reason? And that became my koan. That became my question. Because like, this is strange. What a strange thing to do. Twice a day for 40 minutes. I have a lot of things to do. I'm a college student. Why am I doing this? So, but I continued, and that question was in the background. And then one day, I think I understood. An understanding arose for me. And this understanding became very significant for my further kind of exploration of Zen over these last 50 years. That I was sitting Zazen not to attain anything, not to gain anything, not as self-improvement, not to get rid of my suffering, not to be wise, not to be enlightened. I was sitting Zazen because it was the fullest form of self-expression that I knew. In the way that maybe an artist paints to express themselves. A dancer dances, a singer sings, a writer writes, a craftsperson does crafts. So many different ways that a life is lived. But to discover and find something that, oh, this is the expression that wants to come out. Oh, that's why I'm sitting. It doesn't have to have a reason or a purpose, except to let space for this deep sense of self-expression to appear. Though I don't think I used the word self to myself when I was speaking before, 50 years ago, 48 years ago. This deepest kind of expression that wanted to come out. And so what's being expressed in you right now? Sitting quietly. This is not the time for you to speak. That'll come. But just here, being here now. What does it feel if you tune in and listen and feel and sense? What is moving through you? What is alive in you? What are the sensations and feelings? Some of what might be happening for you might be comfortable and nice. Some of it might be uncomfortable. Some of you might have a headache. Who knows what's happening for your physical pain? Some of you here come to Zen Center because you're suffering, and your suffering is here still. You're here looking for hope and some kind of something that be said that would somehow support you, help you with it. And for me to say to feel what's happening might have been bad news. Like, that's not what you were here for. But what is it that wants to be expressed? And if the task is to participate with it, not in terms of acting on it, but letting it course through us, let it fully be there, that is where we find our freedom. Where we find freedom, if we take the word "are" out of it. The freedom of really allowing it to flow through us as if we're there to let it participate with us. And there we start having this magic place, special place, that's not me and not it, but the meeting place of something profound, that is something deep, that is almost, in Zen language, maybe non-dualistic. What is that? So when I came to Green Gulch here, I came with this feeling of a very kind of deep satisfaction in sitting in Zazen. It was a wonderful thing to sit there and let something that was not me and not something I had to figure out and solve and get to and attain. And I was really lucky, I think, because I didn't know a lot about meditation and Zen. And it's kind of maybe a good thing not to know so too much. And so I didn't know anything, like this idea that you're supposed to get concentrated. Maybe you're supposed to get concentrated when you sit and meditate. I had no idea that maybe I was supposed to have a quiet mind or no thoughts at all. The only thing I knew was I was supposed to show up for what is. I was supposed to show up and be present for what is here now. And I certainly learned a lot about how I wasn't present. But the funny thing, is that was okay not to be present. There wasn't a problem. It wasn't like I was a bad Zen student and had to kind of be angry with myself. All I had to do is to be present for not being present. And that's a funny thing, right? Then you're present. So whatever distraction, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, whatever had me caught up in myself, I just showed up for it. Here for this. Just for this, just for this, just for this, just for this. And what it did was it was an alternative to being reactive. It was an alternative to being overriding things. It was an alternative to being for and against things, which is how I was mostly living my life, outside of Zazen, and plenty of time in Zazen. But this idea that there was another way of being, that was allowing an expression, allowing what is, allowing what's there to be there. It was many years ago I read some story by a Buddhist where someone was very sad in the story and tried many things to not be sad, until someone told this person, if you're sad, be a sad Buddha. Be a sad Buddha. If you're angry, be an angry Buddha. If you're happy, be a happy Buddha. Just be what you are. But the art of that, which is very important, almost like it has to be a warning, that kind of teaching. Don't act on it necessarily. If you're angry, don't act on the anger and cause harm. But in Zazen is a fantastic place, a safe place, to be an angry Buddha. Give anger its freedom. Participate fully, to be present. Feel the sensations of anger. Feel that place where sensing and feeling the anger, the sadness, is non-dual, it's non-separate. The very place where we're feeling those feelings is, that's where there's something new and different can happen. That can only happen if we're not relating to it through our reactivity, through getting caught in it or being pushed by our feelings. Something different begins happening. And one of those things is things begin to relax. Reactivity, all reactivity wants to relax. If you're really present for it, if you're really tuned in, if you're really there, okay, I'm allowed to be angry, okay, let's just be here with it. If you participate in the anger actively, thinking all the stories and how terrible that person was, then you're feeding the fire. But you don't have to pull away from the fire, you just have to be the fire. And then the fire wants to burn out if there's no fuel for it. When I practiced Zen in Japan, one of the teachings I got from one of the great teachers there was, when hot, just be hot. When cold, just be cold. When sad, just be sad. But it's not saying suffer better, suffer more. It's an alternative to the kind of reactivity that feeds the suffering, that feeds the fire. All reactivity wants to relax. So, as I sat in Zazen here in this room, and now I'm looking over there, I've sat so many places here. The quality of the inner life changed. There was more sense of being settled, being calm, being unified. I had a feeling of greater integrity. It was the word I used for myself 45 years ago. But by that time, I wasn't meant ethical integrity. I think it was closer to a sense of feeling whole. All here now. And then I came to Green Gulch. And I didn't realize until later what I was doing. And I'll give an example. I was carrying with someone else something really heavy, big heavy piece of something, wooden thing that was built or something. I don't remember what it was. I think from that area, the other side of this wall, to somehow the other side, up that road, going up somewhere, maybe restoring it someplace. And it was really heavy. And I was holding it. It was that weight or the wood was digging into my hand. It hurt a lot. And the instinct or the orientation, what seemed to have the most rightness to it at the time, was not to ask to, let's rest. Let's not, I can't do this. I'm going to put it down and go to the beach instead. What felt right was to notice the reactivity that I had towards the pain. And the primary drive that made it difficult to be with the pain was not the pain, but was my reactivity to it. And I could see that the quality of my inner life, the sense of integrity or wholeness that I had coming from Zazen, was being compromised or being destroyed by that reactivity. And that it wasn't like I decided to do this. It wasn't like a choice almost. It was just like, it felt natural. Was I don't want to give in to that. I want to be free of that. I want to not have that reactivity around the pain get in my way. And so I try to find how to have equanimity or peace or ease with the pain. It wasn't an easy task, but over and over again at Zen Center, that was a big part of the practice. And one place where an example where it was very significant was sitting sesshins. We were sitting in these postures, hour after hour, day after day, and my knees were on fire with pain. But back then at Zen Center, I don't know what it is now exactly, but there was a really you don't move. Like, nope, you don't move. And so my knees were on fire. And the only way, at some point it got so bad, that the only way that I could manage with it was I had to, again, look at my reactivity. And what I saw was when I got caught up in self-pity, the knee pain became unbearable. But if I released the self-pity, the pain was bearable. That was phenomenal. What? I don't want to participate in my pain that way. Participated with self-pity, that makes things worse. It just felt, it wasn't like I was told by anyone, let go of your self-pity. It was obvious that self-pity made the situation worse. So one of the great little sayings that you might want to put in your back pocket that will help you through Buddhist practice in your life is the little saying, don't make it worse. Whatever you do, don't make it worse. You might not know what to do, but don't do the thing that makes it worse. So part of Zazen was to see that, to understand that, and to have a reference point for that was very different than the reference point you can have in my daily life. And to begin seeing that there was some kind of reference point to understand the impact of reactivity and what we're doing, and come back, or not to do it, to release it, was a very important part of this Zen practice that I did. So then finally, what I'd like to say is that another great question, a great little saying that I found, is the question, what wants to be born here? What wants to arise here? What wants to come here? And was a very important question for me in my Zen practice, because I was learning to be present for what is, just here, just for this here. But for a long time I thought what was here was kind of static. It's just like, okay, I just have to be here with this. But nothing is static. Everything is alive. Everything is percolating and moving and evolving and changing. And what wants to be born here, that question is a question which helps us to get out of our own way, helps us to not live with our opinions, helps us to not live with our reactivity, helps us not to override things or push our way through. It's a way of giving a little bit of space, or a lot of space, to feel, to sense, or maybe even more profound, to allow something to bubble up, to allow something to show itself. Because it's what you allow to unfold is where the Dharma is going to be found. But maybe not with what arises, but with how you participate with it. That some kind of in-between, the meeting place. It's not about the experience you have. Some meditators are looking for bliss. Some meditators are looking for some fantastic experience of enlightenment or something special. Like, is that it? Is that the thing? If I just try harder here, then I'll get the thing. But that's not what Zen is about. It's not about a state. It's not about an experience. It's not about what is happening to you, but how you meet what is happening to you, how you participate in it, what is the relationship you have to it. That's not a relationship of you to it, but somehow the meeting of these places. And in that momentum, in that practice, in the movement, one reference point for it is freedom. And that's very classic in Buddhism, that the movement of Buddhism is a liberation, a freedom. But maybe it's not that you will become free. Maybe it's not that you will be awake, but rather you are giving freedom to all things. What freedom are you giving to all things? The freedom from your reactivity, freedom from your conceit, freedom from appropriation or pushing it away or making a story around it. We're giving freedom to all things. We're allowing everything to be awake in a certain kind of way, in that meeting place, that third way. It's not about you. It's not about what you're focusing on, but it's the freedom that can exist in the middle of it all. The freedom that allows something to be born, allows something to show itself, allows something to be expressed. That's not the reactivity. So this room here is a place where people have been practicing now for, I think, about 60 years. More, I think, 62 years? Amazing. Amazing place to step into. And now you're here. It's your turn. To participate in what this room offers. And what can you give freedom to? What can you allow? What can you show up that's here? Whether it's in you or in the room or anywhere in between. That feels like, oh, this is a taste of what the Tathagata teaches. Remember that chant? You chanted 3 times. A taste. Why in the world do they say taste? How did you taste it? What do you have to bring and feel and sense to taste the Dharma, to feel the Dharma, to be the Dharma? So, I hope these words are meaningful for you. And if they are not, you're welcome to leave them here. May our attention equally penetrate being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. So I'm going to do something that usually isn't done here, or never, to interrupt the chant. Because I'm not sure we're supposed to be chanting right now.
Did you want to welcome questions?
Yeah, exactly. We do questions first. Is that how it works?
We'll do questions first, and then...
Because I'm supposed to get up during the chant to bow, right?
That's right.
And then I would just leave. So, so I guess.
Thank you, yeah, and we'll use the microphone to make it easier for people to hear online. If you have a question, raise your hand. I see Jennifer here. Maybe you could pass this along down the line, please.
Well, I've been listening to you down in the peninsula, Redwood City, since 2018. And Diane and Nikki and Don, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So nice to see you, and thank you for your talk today. It was beautiful. There was a talk you did after your hiking trip for 2 months? And you were talking about clinging and how when you go down a river on a raft to not cling on the things on the side. I still keep that. Yeah, but anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, so there's no question there, but which is it's wonderful. I appreciate what you said. You know everything. No, I wasn't going to say that. What I was going to say was, I actually appreciate it as a follow-through to the talk. You just brought forth what was here for you, and thank you.
Do you mind passing that along to the person?
Could you turn the volume up a little bit?
Thanks, Gil, for your talk. So you said you started in Zen 50 years ago, and nowadays, you spend most of your time as the guiding teacher at Insight Meditation Society. Can you talk about that transition from, or what's your Zen practice like these days, and that transition from Zen to Vipassana?
Thank you. So it's Insight Meditation Center. The site is another place. So, so when I am, as he said, mostly what I do these days is I'm an Insight meditation teacher, which is a whole different wing of Buddhism than Zen these days. But it's I feel very much as a continuity of my Zen practice, just in a different form. And I was introduced to this Insight meditation in Southeast Asia. I was in Japan practicing in Zen monasteries there, and I had to get a new visa for Japan. And I went to Thailand to get the new visa, and then stumbled into this Insight meditation. And when I did the Insight meditation in Asia, I did it in Southeast Asia for about a year and a half. For me, I was doing it as a way to do shikantaza better. Shikantaza means just sitting. And that's a core aspect of Zen in our school here at San Francisco Zen Center. And what I learned from Insight practice, what I learned from Zen was kind of what I talked about today. But what I learned from Insight practice was that I hadn't really seen the little micro moments in my mind, the little movements, the subtle movements, the deeper undercurrents. I was sitting in it was very meaningful, very powerful, and wonderfully challenging to do Zen. But there's something about it that didn't allow me to see with more precision. And insight meditation provided the precision and a certain kind of depth, maybe, that allowed me to sit shikantaza more thoroughly. And that was the value and the benefit for doing the insight practice, to be able to sit shikantaza more thoroughly. And it happens to be that when you do insight practice, it's a path practice. It's a path of which meditation unfolds over, time into different realms, different states, and that it matures into sitting shikantaza. So that so it's just when you come here, you get to start that way. Is that an okay answer? Is that close enough to what you wanted to hear?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk and for everything in between the words. I am particularly very grateful about what you said around allowing the world freedom from your reactivity. I never experienced or thought of it that way. And I was wondering if you have any words of wisdom around moments where, well, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I realize I'm being reactive, but it's like the pull is so strong that I can't do anything about it. So I was wondering if you could share anything around finding, like stepping away in those moments.
Yeah. So traditionally in Buddhism, there's a very important teaching that people train in and develop their capacity that's seldom talked about in the West, in almost any Buddhist tradition I know of, I've been part of, which is the practice of restraint, the practice of holding your tongue, keeping your mouth closed, not blurting out, the reactivity, keeping it to yourself so you don't cause harm. So it's not a pretty picture just to do restraint, but it counts for a lot. The intention to not cause harm is huge. And so it's really important to learn that ability to recognize what's happening. So I'm not going to make the situation worse. No, keep your mouth, keep your lips sealed, even whatever it takes. In some situations, if you can not be reactive, an ideal situation for me is you would be able to tell someone. So you're not carrying it alone. It's not secret or private. You say, you have to choose who you speak to. It's a whole art to know who's safe to talk to. But to say, I'm feeling a certain way, and this is how it is, and this is what I'm working with. I feel so reactive. Just talking about it with someone can take some of the pressure off. The third is, if you have time, these are all things to do if you don't have time. But if you have time, a great thing to do is to excuse yourself. Even if the situation means you're excusing yourself, you say, I need to go to the bathroom. No one needs to know what you're doing there. No one asks. You're going there to sit zazen. You're going there to sit, you may put the lid on down on the toilet, you sit there, and or if you're home, sit on your cushion or something. But then just be the reactivity. Just make room for it. Allow it to be there. Give it space. That you don't do if you act on it. You don't do if you're only restraining. The idea is give it space. Make it room for it. It's powerful. And that's one of the things to learn how to sit zazen, to really understand yourself and learn how to open up and not be reactive and be able to keep showing up for what's here, is a skill that we get better and better at. And to learn that, and then it's a whole different world to live in with your activity if you can do that. Then you don't have to reject it. You don't have to restrain yourself, because zazen is pretty restrained. You're not going to punch anyone out because you're sitting, you're quiet. Is my answer suitable for you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Ray, I'll come back to you.
Hi, Gil. Thank you so much for the words. I've noticed that in almost all of your biographies and the books you write, there's a little sentence that mentions that you started at UC Davis doing agriculture. And I was wondering if that's informed your path at all. Thank you.
Remember when I was first interested in, I came to Zen Center, and I think I came like to I came to a couple of Dharma talks, like, and at City Center. And I went up to the abbot after one of the talks and says, you know, I'm really interested in Zen, but I'm equally interested in farming. And he said, oh, we have Green Gulch. And so some years later then, I eventually came to Green Gulch and worked on the farm here. And that was great. And then I went to Tassajara, and at some point they assigned me to be the gardener, and that was great. But, you know, the Dharma, the life had another path for me than the agricultural one. That was the place. I was going to become a farmer. That was the idea. But somehow I got sidetracked by this Zen thing. Is that what you asked?
Thank you for your intro about the resonance. And I think that that's something that I've really felt myself in my practice and have been trying to allow that space for the resonance and where it is. I also work in the kitchen, and one of the things that Dogen says in the instructions to the cook is to prepare the rice for tomorrow. And I've been sitting with that, sitting still with the resonance versus these sidetracks, like you just said. And I guess I would be curious to hear from, and this is kind of I appreciate the previous question that I think this kind of goes with it of, you know, when do you notice those sidetracks and choose to make a little course correction as opposed to sitting with the stillness or staying in the same path?
I think if I understand your question, I had a similar question when I was at Tassajara, because in a sense, Zen practice was about just being with what is, but the message was, you weren't allowed to do anything about anything. You weren't allowed to let go of something. You weren't allowed to develop anything. It was just like, just be. And I was the gardener at Tassajara, and I said, wait a minute. I'm pulling the weeds out of the garden. Isn't it okay to pull the weeds out of my mind? And, you know, why shouldn't I be able to do that too? And so that was a koan for a long time. What to do here? Until I discovered for myself, or felt, or recognized that the movement to pull the weeds out of the mind can be a deep expression of the natural unfolding. It's what our psychophysical system wants to do. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you don't think, well, I'm not supposed to move it. I'm supposed to accept everything, just be with things as they are, you know, and hands begin to smoke, and you're down to the bone, and you know that's not wise. I mean, it's a natural thing to pull it away. When we're really attuned in a very deep way, I think we know. It's not like I want to, you know, or it's not out of conceit. It's not out of fear. It's not out of greed. It's not out of aversion. But there's something deep inside knows. Oh, I can let go of this. That's what the system wants. Isn't that okay? Should we try? So
We have time for one
Oh,
more,
yes.
and we have one online here.
This is from Vishali on the online Sangha, and they ask, I'm so grateful for your naming the self-pity that comes alongside suffering. This resonated with the recent loss of a family member and how much I have been suffering. I realized through this talk that I have been making my suffering worse with self-pity. So my question is, when you are suffering, how do you let go of self-pity?
I think that if it's easy to do it and natural to do it, please just do it. But the question, assuming that it's not easy, it's there. So, I think there's a lot of answers to that question. And I feel like it's important to respect the difficulty of it and the challenge, and not to just give an answer. There's one answer that suits all things. In fact, just to give one answer could be very disrespectful with the difficulties like this. But even so, with the time we have, I want to give what I think is, for me, is a kind of core Zen answer that goes along with what I've talked about today. And that is that be a self-pitying Buddha. Just sit with the self-pity. Don't try to fix it, but don't try to deny it. Don't try to skim away from it. Give it time. Let the self-pity be free in you. Give it the freedom. Just, there's nothing to be ashamed about having self-pity. There's nothing to be wrong with you that you have self-pity. It's the self-pity of the moment. That's what the world is. That's what the world has come to. This is self-pity. And there's a way of holding it, the way of being present for it in a clear, open, honest way that doesn't try to ignore it, doesn't try to go back to your breathing and try to override it or something. That allows something to happen. It might allow you to see some of the underlying beliefs, underlying reactivity, underlying feelings that might be the source of the self-pity. And you might go deep enough into that, there's, I can let go of that. I can't let go of the self-pity, but the underlying belief, the underlying attachment, the underlying way in which maybe self-pity as its roots has to do with something we've learned from our childhood about what a good person and a bad person is. Oh, look at that. That's what's underlying it. I think I can begin letting go of that, even if I can't let go of the self-pity. So, thank you for the question.